That's like 100% agree with you on that. So another thing to consider is the Rondo opinion, which, Rafi?
Yeah, we know from the past, and like we've said, it is so important to hear from the voices in the community. That's what we're doing here, and what Reconnect Rondo has really tried to do is to center their approach on talking with people. And it's been difficult. Like, it's hard to get a good sample of people from Rondo, actually. And it's hard to kind of do that outreach, but it's important to do that outreach. And Reconnect Rondo, I think, is really committed to that. And that is a very important first step, I think, which I'm unsure if it has been put at the forefront of many of these MnDOT proposals.
So, and I agree with you on that. MnDOT should definitely look into the communities surrounding the I-94 zone that they're thinking of redoing. But Reconnect Rondo has actually done a gentrification study. Now, it was done in 2018, I believe, and the racial makeup of the study goes as follows. 51% white, 16% people of color, and 30% no response. Now, Reconnect Rondo has addressed these limitations, right, of like how only 20% of the respondents are from Rondo,
right,
and only 60% identified as POC. But this study generally takes the surrounding area of where the land bridge is going to be.
Right. These were questions that were asked to people who were at various Reconnect Rondo events.
Yeah.
Hosted throughout Rondo, but welcome to anybody to come from St. Paul or wherever. And so obviously they have this representative sample, which is 20%, like you said, of Rondo. And so again, I think we've talked in the past about the difficulty of actually reaching out to people and getting the input of the people that you really want, because so often you hear certain opinions over others, even when they're not really the opinions of everybody. And so while I think like what Moises said is there are some limitations here, and I think Reconnect Rondo acknowledges that. They have to work harder, and we have to be better at finding ways to connect with people. This study is also a good marker for many things. It's good for gauging general sentiments about the land bridge and about what concerns are, right? And so there were some clear things that were highlighted by participants, even if they weren't necessarily all Rondo residents.
And those highlights are, that study found that out of all the negative possible outcomes, the most would be, or that people thought the negative outcomes would be gentrification. Mm-hmm. And the second to that would be a raise of property taxes, which obviously makes housing less affordable. Mm-hmm. So there are also 2 points made by community members where some want the land bridge to have houses on top, and another point is that people want it to be just green space. So Rondo needs to do more in getting really the sentiment of what Rondo thinks, and we actually have been to some events and they actually seeked out what people want on the land bridge. We were picking out pictures of
Yeah, I think that was a really cool exercise, actually.
Yeah.
Because they they took like a bunch of sheets. There was a bunch of different tables, little stations that you could just walk around and look at. And they all had sheets on the table with pictures, and they gave everybody like a little palette of stickers. And basically you just put a sticker on the ones you liked. And there was a lot of like good ideas as well as not good ideas. But one thing that really like instantly caught my attention was, I think there was one table and it was like showing the cities and how we want the streets to look, kind of.
Yeah.
And I really liked the ideas that were more geared towards like walkable cities.
Right.
And things that had a lot of green space and things to bike on, or just, like I said, to walk on instead of being so automobile focused.
Right.
And actually, I think there was only one column of that little, like, it wasn't a little sheet, it was a big poster sheet, but there was one column of it that was just like straight walkable stuff, like walkability, walkable cities. And then the rest of it was what you'd see normally. Mm-hmm. Just like roads and all that, just normal stuff you'd see going downtown. But why wouldn't we just want to walk? Like, why don't we just want to walk places, and instead of spending all this money on gas, instead of, I wouldn't call it wasting time, I guess, because cars are very like
convenient in some ways.
Convenient, yeah.
But there are lots of ways that living in a city where you can get to everything by bike or by walk is just so much more calming and just would be preferable.
Connects you to your community.
Yeah, and the land bridge will connect both sides of the I-94 trench, increase walkability between the both sides. So it would definitely do that.
Never heard it called that before.
What?
A trench.
I mean, that's what it is.
No,
right?
That's absolutely what it is. It's
Big
just
trench.
like in my mind, I guess I've never really like put those.
Hey, we learn something new every day, right?
Yeah. I think it's important to mention, we touched on this a little bit, the MnDOT report basically did not include the land bridge as one of the potential options. They have said that they're going to continue collaborating with Rondo. And it's also, they've said that the land bridge that's being proposed is not something that would directly impact the traffic flow, right? And so there is this continued collaboration with the Minnesota Department of Transportation. And also, many of these plans can coexist with Rondo.
Definitely.
And so I think that is something to look forward to in the future.
And, another thing that MnDOT has to explore is that what are the effects of these different proposals? Will it displace anybody? Is keeping the status quo what Rondo wants? Is what any community along the I-94 stretch wants?
Right.
I think on the topic of, expansion plans and things of the such,
right?
We have two other parts of the nation that are going through similar things, but it's happening like right now.
Yeah.
It's not like, it's in the past, somewhat in the past, 1 foot in the past, 1 foot in the present, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
It's happening both. It happened in the past. Now it's happening right now.
It's still happening, is the point I'm trying to make. And those two cities would be Houston, Texas, and Overtown, which is in Florida, right?
The Miami area.
Yeah, it's near Miami.
Well, it's actually right next to it, but yeah.
Right. And similarly to Rondo, Overtown was just like a cultural melting pot of people brought from different places. I believe Overtown was founded by construction workers and rail workers who come from Jamaica, Cuba, Trinidad, Tobago?
Tobago.
No, Tobago?
I don't know.
There's different ways to say
Tobago.
it. I say Tobago, but hey, people
Lane pointed at
us.
Rafi, so I'm going to go with
Tobago? Trinidad, Tobago.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what I said. I don't know, but people know what we're talking about. You know what I mean? You can Google it.
Yeah. So Overtown is called that because, you go over a railway to get there. And I think that really just solidifies the importance of transportation in that area.
Right. It's clear, we've been thinking about how transportation affects our environment, and specifically with regards to highways, right? And just the name of this town is, shows basically that is always present. Even in the 1890s, when this was found, it was railroads then. And it was how the transportation and how the, railroad had a physical marker on the landscape. You had to get over the railroad to get to this town. So you had to go to Overtown. And one more thing that I think is important about this place is that it was known, I think, as the Harlem of the South. And so this was really where jazz musicians and artists could come and perform and share their craft and work and be in a space which was, like Rondo and like so many places, such an important kind of center for African Americans.
Right.
Yeah, people like Nat King Cole and Ella Fitzgerald would perform in our local venues.
Right. And that's just, yet another parallel to Rondo.
Exactly.
We have another bustling BIPOC community filled with grocery stores, pharmacies, an ice cream parlor, lawyers' offices, and even, like a newspaper that was head by Black and brown people. And I think, the artist you mentioned also draws another parallel. Right now, we're in the ballroom, the Rondo ballroom or whatever. I can't necessarily say they have one of those, but it's there, right? You guys see the connection.
It must be, yeah.
So this took a turn for the worse starting in the 1930s in Overtown, where a developer named George Merrick and others proposed to, quote, removing every Negro family from the city limits. And slum clearance provided the best opportunity for them to do so using transportation. And by 1965, half the population was out with the construction of 3 highways, I-95, I-395, and State Highway like 836. And pretty much an interchange, 4-way interchange that this place, honestly, in my opinion, it's the most physically destructive of the highway plans that we've covered.
Right. And I think that we called it slum clearance.
Yeah.
Was just a way for the board, I suppose, to like clear room for the local white elite.
Yeah.
In that area.
In Miami, they wanted to expand. Yeah. It's like, hey, look, fresh real estate.
Yeah.
But they didn't care about the people living there.
I believe it was they wanted to expand the boundaries of the business district. Yeah. So I mean,
and despite them thinking that, Four Habits still think of Overtown as home. Out of the 300 businesses that were there, 40 still exist. So it's still there, but it's very.
It's not
with gentrification.
In its former glory.
No, not close to it.
And then I believe, like, is it half? Is it over half of the population that's living in poverty?
Yep.
I mean, there's another correlation between Rondo and Houston and Overtown. I mean,
there's a pattern going on here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's very apparent too. It's not like as much as they tried to sweep it under the rug, they didn't do a very good job.
Yeah, and similar to what they're, doing here, the Florida Department of Transportation came out with a report in 2010 on alternatives for the highway. What to do. One was a no-build option. One was a tunnel, make it to a tunnel. At level.
Right, which is similar to the boulevard option, which we've discussed.
Which right now it's
in St. Paul.
Yeah, right now in Overtown it's like bridges over the ground. They just went with making it, raising it more and adding lanes to it, which doesn't do anything for the people. It just does it to lower traffic, which again we discussed.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
It ain't working. Such despair.
Yeah,
honestly,
it's bizarre. I mean, this is just pouring money into something that is really not going to help out the people who it's affecting.
Thank you for watching our podcast. If you like what you see, give us a like, hit that subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get notified when we put out new podcast episodes.